realize, we cannot cover the length and breadth of India. So we do many partnerships. But partnerships are a key way that we do this. For example, like some partnerships that we've done with FICCI, where we've educated 5 lakh women around digital tools, how they set up their businesses. Those are the kinds of partnerships that also help us, propagate what kind of business integrity policies, businesses need to adapt to. And the last thing, and we don't like doing it, but we take action when there are big violations that we see on our platform. So we want to keep businesses, especially women-led businesses, very safe on our platform. And pivoting to, what that does is that when you have those tools and when you feel relatively safe on our platform, we've seen more and more women, like I said, come up and start their businesses on our platform. We see that's where also we're doubling down in investing. So 2 things that we've found hold women back. One is access to working capital. So we've actually partnered with Indifi and Flexi Loans, and we give working capital. You start a business, you just need that little bit of a jump, and this is the first. We've not done it anywhere else. It's only been done in India. And we give a little bit of we give some discount to women-led entrepreneurs using the working capital product. We connect them to these loan agencies. The second thing that we do is, this is again in partnership. We launched this Center for Entrepreneurship in 2021, late 2021, and our commitment there is to educate 10 million small businesses on digital tools. We believe many of them will be women-led. I know 10 million it could be bigger. We'll take that. but 10 million is a big number. And 250,000 creators, because we feel creators are also coming onto their own now on the platform. So that's another commitment we've made. So we think deeply about business integrity. We think deeply about how we can partner better with creators and small businesses. And all of this is actually led, if I may, again, just quote 2 stats. 100% of women-owned small businesses that we surveyed say today that they use some form of digital platform, not just us, to further their business. So Indian women are getting a lot more savvy around using digital platforms to grow their business. And out of them, and when we think about, we measure our own success, 93% of them said they use some meta platforms. So that made us all very happy, because we're clearly doing something right in ensuring safety and making those tools accessible. So that's how we think about it, right?
And I was actually going to get into Nari Se Kharidari at this point. I was going to say that you've been been such a proponent of it. What's the evolution been like when we talk about economic participation of women? You've seen it professionally, you've seen it from a personal lens, you've been quite close to it, your ministry's been advocating for it. What's the journey been like, and how do you anticipate this is going to unfold as well? Don't look at the time.
Well, I have a job to go back to, but 2-3 issues. While you are trying to ensure that you give credit access, maybe you would like to propagate programs that banks have, which are nationalized banks, which have great reach across the country. Something like SBI has 22,000 branches all over the country. It's the country's largest bank. Now, if you look at the success of Mudra Yojana, which is a financial service which gives collateral-free loans, out of the 380 million loans given, 68% were given to women. Stand Up India, again, credit up to 1 crore rupees. 80% of the beneficiaries were women. Now, out of the 400 million women in the workforce age group today, you have close to 300 million women who collaborate in organized and unorganized sectors. But the one aspect in terms of business, when the Prime Minister speaks about the self-help group movement in the country, you have close to 80 million self-help groups and close to women who are attached to it, 90 million women who are attached to it. Now, they together every year manage nothing less than $40 billion worth of credit, which means that these women already at the grassroots have the fiscal discipline to manage credit, return it, NPAs less than 2%. These stories, if they are told also, they may not be a part of your servicing agenda, but these are stories that you can amplify, especially, let's say, on Facebook. So if you are doing these amplification tools for women, it need not only be an aspect of giving them access to credit, it can also be an inspiration that they can draw. They see a woman right there in their village or their hamlet or in their small towns who are already doing those businesses. And I think that when you try to leverage a platform, let's say like Instagram, you are bringing out more and more women who have capacity to bring forth the potential of homegrown businesses. And that is one segment that you have serviced the most. That when people presume the terminology business, they presume a proper structured office in a big building. And you have brought the idea of enterprise from that big structure which needs a lot of money to service it to a homegrown business, which is where many Indian women find comfort in terms of growth, comfort in terms of potential to contribute to. So I think that is the untold story of the Instagram movement vis-a-vis female enterprise in our country.
Yeah, we see that.
Yeah, thank you for that, ma'am. Antigone, just as we start to wrap this, there are, you have been and you continue to be leading a lot of this safety work across all our users, across all demographics. What keeps you up at night? Easy peasy work.
Right, lost luggage keeps me up at night. You know, I think probably in a way the biggest challenge is not so much in any one area, whether it's youth safety or women's safety, but I think it's actually what the minister touched on, which is how do we really collaborate well with policymakers and with governments and with government agencies in a way that is, we both have the same goals in mind, right? We both want the people who are using our platforms and the people on the ground to be safe, to thrive, to find economic opportunity. And how do we best collaborate to do that together? Because we are a large platform and governments are structures that are generally set up to be in service of their communities, and they're represented by leaders like the minister here. So how do we create that proper collaboration? Whether that's through education, whether that's through programs like these small investments. How do we do that together? I think that's, to me, it seems like every time we turn and we move forward, there's more to do because this is a constant and dynamic environment. Yeah. So I think that's probably the thing that keeps me up, is how do we do better in that area?
Yeah. When we say our work in safety is never done and it's an unfinished agenda, I think it's going to be like that for a while. But very quickly, last two. Sandhya, another demographic that we're looking at, another group that we're looking at increasingly more and more is creators. So talk to us a bit about, the kind of work that we are doing there and how to make sure that they are having meaningful experiences before we wrap this.
Yeah, and I talked about Drishti at the start, when we talked about the launch of the Amrit generation. She's a perfect example of a creator, who started not just her business on Instagram, which Minister, you alluded to, but also has started an NGO where, she devotes her time and, does a lot of work with women through and uses Reels and Instagram as a way to do that. And, over the last 3 months, I've met really hundreds of creators across the country, and I've seen this being played out time and again, where they're using our platform to express themselves and, talk about the causes that they care about. So for us, again, just as with businesses, we think about safety, right? We're thinking also about safety for creators. And some of the things that you talked about, and, we'll talk about we've already talked about the awareness issues, but there's so many tools that we've launched, and Antigone has a session just after this with parents and with creators, later, panels where she'll delve into this further. But, the things that we do around limits, like you can limit who interacts with you, you can shut off DMs, you can block users. And here we've also used technology where, if we see the same person, if you block the same user who comes as another account, you block them again, we can block them altogether, right? So we do that as well, as long as we know it's the same person. The third thing is, we also do things like live moderation. So a lot of creators use lives to communicate and stay in contact with their audience. And we've done things like, and these are just some examples, there are 30 tools, but that's the way we think about it, where, there's a moderator who can actually take down comments in real time, because you're right, we want this to be focused on the causes they're pursuing, on the passions they want to pursue versus, or the businesses they want to set up versus all the other, troll or, targeting that they're faced with. So that's how we're thinking about creators. And what we're seeing now is a lot more creators are coming on our platform, using it, especially India, right? Buzzing with, the first thing the team told me when I joined was, you haven't made a reel. How can you, how can you move to the India business? But this is, here and now, people are using our platforms to express themselves, especially women. And that's where we focused on thinking about how we keep them safe on our platforms.
Thank you. And
May
that's
I pop in here for 1 second on that? So, because when I was here last time, we did an interaction with creators, and one of the things that stuck out to me was that the creators kept speaking about how they're thrilled to have this opportunity to sort of develop their presence, but that it can be extraordinarily draining and exhausting because it is a constant moving thing, and they felt like a compulsion or a need to constantly be creating and coming up with new content. And between the time that I was here and the time that I returned, we now have something where creators can actually set posts through the future so that they can take a step back from and do something on their own and have it be able to better manage. So I do think this will be always a dynamic space, but I'm glad to see that people here influenced our work back at
absolutely, and that's the well-being move. I'll give you the last word, ma'am, and I think we talk about the creator economy. This is a perfect and not so subtle plug for our upcoming campaign, Amrit Generation. So how did you think of it, and where do you see it headed? And are you,
I think by the time I'm done with this conversation, people might presume that I hold the India team at Meta hostage in my office. But that's exactly how this idea came to be. I held hostage Shivnath Thakral and Natasha Jog in my office. And I said, what are you doing for the kids? And Natasha and Shivnath obviously spoke about we are doing this and real safety, that and everything. When the Prime Minister talks about the Amrit Kal generation, this is the first time in the history of our country we have a goal set for the next 25 years. It has never been done administratively or politically or societally in our country. Who are we setting this agenda for 25 years from now? Not my generation, not the Prime Minister's generation, but the generation of the young ones who are here in this room. Now, if you say as a country, as a collective, we are coming together to set the agenda for 25 years from now, we would like to hear the voices of the young ones we are working for. What is the kind of nation state they hope to be a part of 25 years from now? They are the Amrit generation, as we call them. So I was, again, like I said, holding hostage 2 people from Meta. And I said, could you help us reach out to children across the country who use Facebook and Instagram? I want to hear what the Amrit generation aspires for the Amrit Kal. What the first budget of that particular Amrit Kal was just presented. When I put forth this request, what it in turn does, it compels the young ones to at least look at the national budget. Because many of us never imagined that a youngster would sit and look at the details in the national budget. For them, the budget happens, the elders discuss it, financial pages or financially based television channels debate it, and it's done. But that budget lays the very financial foundation of a future they are going to be a part of. So I'm glad that Meta has taken up that request, is going to reach out to youngsters across the country to say, tell us, what do you see now that will help fulfill the vision of what you want of your nation state 25 years from now. So I'm hoping that young students across the country will contribute, and whoever is shortlisted by Meta, we in the Ministry of Women and Child Development are more than happy then to take this group of youngsters to the Indian Parliament, to see the Presidential Palace, to see the Prime Minister's Museum, where all the Prime Ministers who have served our country, their journey is housed under one roof. And we hope that this engagement with the youngsters in our country tell them that government is here to serve them, not only now, but also in the future. It is for the youngsters to take the power back in their hands. And the first place to take that power back digitally is by recognizing what the budget means to young India.
It's a brilliant
Terrific.
idea.
I think that's a great summary, and thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Antigone and Sandhya as well. If I can just request you here for a quick photo op, I think, as I've been requested to organize right here. No, I know you wanted the male presence, but it's women only.
अपने किशोर बच्चे को दीजिए ज्यादा सकारात्मक ऑनलाइन अनुभव। फैमिली सेंटर पर सुपरविजन टूल्स जैसे इंस्टाग्राम टूल्स के साथ, जिनकी मदद से माता पिता देख सकते हैं कि उनके बच्चे किन्हें फॉलो करते हैं और कौन उन्हें फॉलो करता है। सुपरविजन सेटअप होने के बाद डेली टाइम लिमिट्स की मदद से माता पिता इंस्टाग्राम पर अपने किशोर बच्चे द्वारा बिताया जाने वाला समय कम कर सकते हैं और साथ ही सेंसिटिव कंटेंट कंट्रोल नए किशोरों के अकाउंट्स को कम संवेदनशील चीजें देखने देता है। किशोरों को इंस्टाग्राम पर सकारात्मक अनुभव देने में सहायक 30 से भी ज्यादा टूल्स देखें। डेली टाइम लिमिट्स इंस्टाग्राम पर स्वेच्छा से कम समय बिताने में किशोरों की मदद करते हैं। हमारे प्लेटफॉर्म पर सकारात्मक अनुभव देने में सहायक 30 से भी ज्यादा टूल्स देखें। फैमिली सेंटर पर उपलब्ध टूल्स जैसे सुपरविजन टूल्स किशोरों को इंस्टाग्राम पर सुरक्षित रखने में उनके माता पिता की मदद कर सकते हैं। इन टूल्स की मदद से माता पिता देख सकते हैं कि उनका बच्चा किन्हें फॉलो करता है, कौन उन्हें फॉलो करते हैं, वे इंस्टाग्राम पर कितना समय बिताते हैं और उनके किशोर बच्चे
Hello again everyone. We are now kicking off the Meta Digital Suraksha Summit. A warm welcome to everyone. It is our great honor to have among us today the Honorable Minister of Women and Child Development and Minister for Minority Affairs, Srimati Smriti Irani. Thank you, Minister Irani, for giving us your valuable time today. We are also delighted to be joined by our online safety partners who will share their expertise with us through a host of curated discussions today. I now call upon Sandhya Devanathan, Vice President and Head of Meta in India, to inaugurate the summit with her opening remarks.
Very warm welcome to Smriti Irani ji, the Honorable Minister, Union Minister for Women and Child Development. Madam, thank you for gracing us on this occasion, and it's a privilege to have you here to discuss a topic that is gaining relevance as more and more Indians, especially women and children, take to technology to enhance their everyday lives. User safety remains a really core priority for all of us at Meta. I'm coming back home after 17 years. This is a real honor and a privilege for me to lead Meta's business in the country. And things look dramatically different from when I left, and looks different in a very good way. In my first few months here, I've had the opportunity to meet hundreds of creators and entrepreneurs, women creators and entrepreneurs, who've carved out a niche for themselves, and in many of those instances, they've used our platforms to do so. Just last week, I was at the G20 Empower Alliance, G20 Alliance meeting by Empower, and the discussion was really about women empowerment and equity, and how this can be a win-win. Like if when you empower women, it can be a win-win not just for equity, but also for the economy. It was really insightful, and we had some very thought-provoking discussions over the course of the 2 days that I was there. But technology emerged as a core force, and the conversation then expands from being more about women, from not just being about women equity, but to being about women tech-quity. And that, to me, was a really powerful thought, that tech can be this great equalizer and enabler. This moment also reminds me of what Guneet Monga said at the Oscars. And such a proud moment for all of us Indians, right, when she won the Oscar. The future is audacious, it is here, and it is female. The future is audacious, it is here, and it is female. We are already seeing these winds of change. It was Guneet Monga who said it. I'm just paraphrasing her, and she's great, right? But it really struck with me. We are already seeing these winds of change. Women are no longer on the sidelines of the internet revolution in our country. Let me begin by telling you about what we saw 2 years ago. And this is a stat I use often because it resonates very much with me. During the pandemic, we saw a really strong trend towards women-led businesses using our apps to grow their businesses, to start their businesses. And it's exciting to see that trend continue even post the pandemic. Just to give you 2 stats. More than 2/3 of businesses, of accounts that self-identify as women-owned businesses on Instagram were set up just in the last 3 years. So in India, that's pretty massive stat around how we're seeing women entrepreneurship up and to the right on our platforms at least. Even on Facebook, more than half of all business pages, 53% of business pages on Facebook, which have a female admin, were also set up in the last 3 years. So we're seeing this trend on our platform where we're seeing more and more women start up their businesses, and we've seen this especially post the pandemic. This trend is true for the creatorverse as well. Young women across the country are expressing themselves creatively on Instagram and on Facebook. And together, they're leading narratives that matter to them on our platforms. Whether it's around conversations around body positivity, around gender equality, mental health, or around sustainability. We see that on our platform. And I'd like to give you one example of Drishti Karbanda. She's a creator from Panchkula who's not just using her voice on Instagram to promote her business. She does that, but she's also running an all-woman NGO to fight for the causes that she is passionate about. And youngsters like Drishti, who have a vision for themselves and for the future, are the inspiration behind the Amrit Generation initiative, which we're launching today in partnership with the Ministry of Women and Child Development. This is an initiative that's pivoted strongly around the creator economy. This initiative supports Gen Z to express their ideas for the future of India by unleashing their creativity through Reels. So we're very excited about partnering on this program. Be it a women entrepreneur starting her first business in Nagpur, or a woman or a mother starting a community around shared interests in her neighborhood, or whether it's a homemaker who's starting her own bakery, or it be a young creator that's breaking the barriers of language, like we saw, with Drishti's example, resources and geography. All of this is possible because millions of these women find our platforms empowering and safe. We recognize our responsibility, and that's why we make significant investments in technology, we develop policies, and we forge partnerships to keep our communities safe online. Meta remains really committed to driving digital inclusion in India through various programs. We know that the internet can be a really enriching experience where you meet people, you connect with long-lost friends, where you learn and grow and find communities that, where you have shared passion and interests. But in this town square, we also know that we have to continuously play a game of whack-a-mole when it comes to user safety. We understand that it is a complex but critical task. We've been training our technology and systems to recognize and remove the majority of harmful content on our platform before users even report it. We've invested more than $16 billion over the last 7 years to strengthen our teams and to build industry-leading technology products and programs, including several here in India that enhance user safety and security. You'll hear more about this work that we do from my colleague who's here all the way from DC, Antigone Davis, who heads our safety efforts globally for Meta. Antigone has devoted her career to this really crucial and critical topic and is in a continuous dialogue with important stakeholders such as yourselves here today to figure out how we can improve our products and experiences to address user safety concerns. And this is an ever-changing dynamic tech environment, so this becomes even more critical that we continue to have these conversations. Meta is committed to catalyzing India's tech dream, and we'll continue to play a significant role in empowering India's youth and women. We want them to be innovators, we want them to be disruptors, and we want them to be dreamers. With that, I will wrap and not hold you back from the programming that we have lined up for you today. We have quite a few really, exciting conversations through the day. And thank you again for being here. Working with experts such as yourselves, policymakers and others has made us better. And the continued collaboration will be key to making sure that our progress continues. So thanks again. Thank you and welcome to the summit.
Thank you, Sandhya, for sharing your thoughts on India's changing technology landscape and how we are moving towards an era of women techquity. No doubt, keeping our communities safe online is an essential facet of encouraging more and more women to use technology and maximize the value they gain from the internet. We will now hear from Antigone Davis, Vice President Global Head of Safety at Meta. Antigone leads some of our most important safety work, and she will walk us through Meta's approach to building a safer online experience for users, especially our younger users. Over to you, Antigone.
So before I get started, I just want to warn you, I may walk very gingerly on this stage. I arrived without my luggage last night, so I'm wearing a colleague's shoes. I also just have to give a giant shout out to India, because only in India can you arrive at 10 o'clock at night, find a shop at 10:30 in the evening, and have them tailor you a suit by 7 o'clock in the morning. So one other story before I get started, and I'm off script, so they're going to get upset with me. But whenever I come to travel and I come to a country, one of the first things I do when I get to my hotel room is to turn on the news and find out what's going on, and just not the world news that we all hear, but what's happening sort of locally and what's getting covered on the local news station. And while I turned on the news, I saw the Minister Irani, talking about future female forward. And it was very interesting to me listening to what you were saying. Over 200 million women in India are contributing fiscally to the economy, and it resonated with me. 400. Oh. 400 million, even better. And it resonated with me with your remarks. And I'm very, very proud of our platform's contribution to that effort, to small businesses run by women, really supporting them and supporting the creator economy. So that was just, it was very interesting to see and then to hear your remarks today. So with that, I'll get started. As I think was said, I am our VP of Safety Policy at Meta, and I work on issues of women's safety, youth safety, the safety of users on our platform broadly, LGBTQ community, almost anybody who is targeted or in a vulnerable position. So I will walk today with you through our commitment to safety and what we're doing in this area and some of the new advancements. I will talk to you a lot about our partnerships, because the truth is that no matter what we do in this area, we can't do it without the experts that are in the room here today. Everything that we do is informed by what you learn and what you're doing with your communities. And then I'll talk to you a little bit about how we invest and build an open and safe internet, and how we partner not only with all of you in doing that, with all of you experts in the room, but also with policymakers. How do we work to do that? So let me talk to you a little bit about our commitment to safety. We try to take a 360-degree approach, a holistic approach. That means partnerships, as I mentioned earlier. Those are core and fundamental to our work. We have a number of partners in the room today. I think Mary Trust, Rati Foundation, Center for Social Research, all of you have played a huge role in the development of our policies, our tools, our resources. The second is policies, making sure that we have rules that say what you can and cannot do on the platform. Those are our policies. Those policies are informed by our content moderators, and our content moderators review that content. And here we have, in India, we have 20 different languages that are covered by our content moderators. The next is safety tools. What are the tools that we have in the background to ensure that we're keeping people safe, as well as the tools that we give users to ensure that they can keep themselves safe. So we do a lot in the background with artificial intelligence, with machine learning, to ensure that we are removing content that violates our policies. But we also want to make sure in those areas where we may not know, where users know best how to create a personal and safe experience for themselves, that we're giving them the tools to do that. The next is our resources. So we have long invested in resources to ensure that young people, women, and others can access expert guidance and ensure that they can find the expertise that they need or the support that they need if they encounter trouble on our platform. And then last, but certainly not least, I would say it's up there in importance with partnerships, and that's feedback from the people who are using our platform and ensuring that we're building for their needs. One of the things that we've launched much more recently is something called the Best Interest of the Child framework. So many of you are probably familiar with the Best Interest of the Child framework that's come out of the UN or out of the OECD. We've tried to take that into the way that we're building and designing our products. This framework was built for our product teams so that they can actually utilize it as they're developing new features, new services, new apps, etc. And we've distilled it down to 6 key principles. The first is to recognize and engage global youth and families who use our services. So that means taking in that guidance as we're building. Second is creating safe and age-appropriate environments for teams. So working with child development experts to understand what is actually age-appropriate and making sure that as we build our features, we're building them in that way. The third is to promote teen autonomy. And this is the part that matters to me as a parent, while at the same time being sure that we're supporting the rights and duties of parents. So you'll see, as I talk today, that we've invested in more tools to ensure that parents have what they need to parent teens and young people in the digital age. Fourth is prioritize teens' well-being and safety. Fifth, ensure that we're supporting their privacy in all of our product designs. And you'll hear some of the advancements we've made in that area that I think will reflect that. And last is empowering teens and parents to understand and exercise their data rights. And that means making sure that they have the resources, the information that is needed for them to exercise those rights. Nothing. So I want to talk to you a little bit about highlighting our efforts on youth well-being. You'll see on this slide as I go through a number of the advancements that we've made in 3 different areas. So the first is our services and ad restrictions. So I mentioned using the best interest of the child framework. We've made some changes to the way that we do a number of things. So for example, for advertising, we're for teens now. We only advertise to teens based on their age and their location. We no longer advertise based on their behaviors on our platform. We feel that that's better aligned with what their abilities are in terms of understanding ads and ads targeting. They may not understand it in the same way we do as adults. On the other hand, we want to make sure that ads are relevant to them and not coming from places that are totally irrelevant or age inappropriate. And so that's why we do use age and location. Another example is we do not give teens access to dating or to marketplace, again, because we're trying to actually decide what aligns with what's age appropriate for a teenager. Safeguards and default settings. So I mentioned earlier taking in the best interest of the child the privacy of teens. You'll now know that for teens, their accounts are set private by default. Meaning they are unlike us where we may come in and have a different default setting, they're set at private by default. This ensures additional safeguards for them. Another thing that we've done for teens is when it comes to things like messaging, we are actually proactively preventing unconnected adults from connecting with minors or accounts that look suspicious to us. We will not allow them to connect with minors. Another thing that we do is using this AI that identifies potentially suspicious accounts. So these are not accounts that are actually violating our policies, but they're behaving in suspicious ways. So for example, maybe making a lot of friend requests to minors that they aren't connected to. We will not surface minors to those adults in things like people you may know or groups you can join. And then we've long invested in transparency and resources for teens. I'll talk to you about some of the newer ones, but we have long had a safety center. We now have something that I think is very important, a family center. This family center is linked to parental supervision tools that we've developed and provides resources for parents in particular that are based on experts. We also have a really important program called Get Digital, which I believe launched in 2020, and is a free education and resources that educators can pull, that parents can pull around key safety features. I don't know how many of you are familiar with stopncii.org, but when I first came to Meta, my team and I did a global tour, and we went and did summits quite similar to this around the world, and we sat down and did roundtables with women around the world and women's safety advocates around the world to try to understand more deeply the experience of women on our platform. And what we found when we did those roundtables was that to a T, in every place that we went, this issue came up, the non-consensual sharing of intimate images. And it was impacting women's interest in being on not only our platform, but being on the internet more broadly. And so listening to what we heard, we came back and we thought, we use technology to prevent the sharing of child exploitation material on our platform. Can we use the same kind of technology to try to prevent the non-consensual sharing of intimate images? And so working with our teams, we developed that technology. We'd long had policies against it, but now we had technology to prevent it, to find it and prevent it. We then reached out and worked with something called the UK Revenge Porn Hotline. This allows individuals to reach out to that hotline if they have images that they are afraid will be shared on our platform or any other platform. They can go there, they can create basically what you would think of as a digital fingerprint of that image and prevent that image from being shared on our platform. Since we launched, there are now numerous companies around I think about 8 at total at this point, and over 80 partners around the world who are working with us on this. Take It Down is a very, very similar program that we helped fund and support, that's been launched by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It's a global program, but it does the same thing, the same technology or similar technology for minors. I'm really glad to let you know that it will be launching in Hindi and other regional languages. Hindi, I believe, sometime very soon this year. The idea here is to ensure that young people who are in a position where may be threatened, or someone may be, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the term sextortion, but this is where you may have images and someone will try to threaten to share those images and then do that to either collect money from you, or in some cases to try to set up contact with that minor, in-person contact with this minor. This will enable the minor to take control back of those images, to prevent them from being spread on the platform. And we're working with organizations like Mary Trust and others to ensure that young people who reach out can get the support and resources that they need through this program. So that actually brings me to our safety center. I mentioned earlier that we have had resources. We've just relaunched our safety center. I think one of the things I wanted to make sure that we had this slide is for people to see that the safety center is launched in 10 Indian languages. The safety center also has unique resources, so it covers all of the issues that we typically cover, but it has unique resources for individuals. So, for example, for journalists or women public figures, they can find all the types of resources that they might specifically need located here. One of the things that I think is really important across all this work is I can kind of stand up here and tell you, look at all these things that we're doing and how committed we are. But there needs to be a way for people like you to hold us to account, to make sure that we're actually doing what we say. And so one of the things that we've done is we've committed to providing transparency around our work. We have transparency reports that come out on a regular basis. These reports let people know how much content we've removed. So you can see here that in the amount of hate speech that we've removed, 11 million pieces of hate speech on Facebook, 4.7 million, and that was in that particular time period. What I think is really important that isn't up here is that in almost every case across any of these issues that violate our policies, over 90% of the content is removed before someone reports it to us. So most of this content that you see here that's being removed is being removed by our technology before people report it to us. And one of the things that we've been working on is also to include information about how often the content is viewed before we remove it, because I think that's also important for understanding the safety of the platform. So as I started at the beginning, I'm going to return here now to the importance of partnerships in the work that we do. We work with, I think it flashed on the screen earlier, 400 partners. I believe it's actually up to about 850 partners, academic experts, NGOs around the world, to build out what we've done here. I want to share just a few of the ones that I think are particularly important and that I'm particularly proud of, and my team is particularly proud of. So this is one of our newer ones. So India has the presidency for G20. We launched with the Ministry for Electronics and Information Technology, this online campaign. I believe at this point over 11 million people have seen this safety campaign. It's in 7 Indian languages. It offers information about reporting online. It offers information around some of the tools that are available to people for staying safe, as well as guidance around online frauds and scams and how to protect yourself. Another one I mentioned earlier, but it's funny because this is the second time I've been to India this year within the last 9 months, and the first time I was here was as part of the launch of the Mary Trust line. I'm not sure Yeah, there we are. I'm really proud of our partnership here and of this work. The Murray Trust Line offers young people an opportunity if they are in distress around anything from cyberbullying to the non-consensual sharing of intimate image to reach out to that trust line, to work, if it's on our platform, to work with us to remove that content to help safeguard that child. I can't believe that was just in July that I was here. And then I want to tell you about two particular campaigns as well. One of them is called Report, Don't Share. So we did a bunch of research around child exploitation on our platform and trying to understand the sharing of child exploitation material. When we did that research, we found that over 70% of the content that was shared on our platform was not shared because of a sexual interest in the child, but was shared because people were trying to either express outrage or thought it was funny, which is, of course, not funny. But any time that content is shared, it ultimately re-victimizes the child. And so we've launched this campaign called Report It, Don't Share. Report It, Don't Share. We've launched it. India was one of the first countries, if not the first country, where we launched it in 10 Indian languages. And I'm really proud to say that it has increased reporting on our platform and has decreased sharing of this content. The other is a reporting campaign that's in 5 Indian languages that talks just about the significance of reporting broadly and how to do it, and in particular around women's safety. So last but not least, I want to talk to you a little bit about building an open and safe internet. I've talked to you a lot about the things that we've been doing. What I want people here to know is that we're not waiting for regulation. While we believe regulation and industry standards and clear and fair standards are really important, and I know that here in India there's a lot of active conversation around legislation and regulation in this area, and I'm glad to hear that. We're committed to the same goals as policymakers and here to collaborate. We aren't waiting. We aren't waiting for regulation because we think it's important to keep the internet safe and to stand as industry leaders in this area. And we look forward to working with policymakers over the course of the next year to work out the details to ensure that however the regulations come to be, that they're implemented in a way that allows for innovation, that allows for continued participation and creativity, and also allows for healthy competition. So with that, I'm going to stop. I know there's a lot happening today, and I'm very excited to be a part of all the panels coming up, in particular to have a chance to speak with the minister. So I'm going to step up, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Antigone, for that deep dive into Meta's commitment to safety, which Meta fulfills by building meaningful partnerships and leveraging technology solutions to build a safer and more open internet. I would request you to remain near the stage for the fireside chat on online safety. We now request Sandhya Devan